What do we know about Dak's condition?
Yeah, Greeny, Dak Prescott was rushed to the hospital and underwent surgery performed by Dr. Gene Curry because he had an open fracture and they wanted to eliminate the threat of an infection as quickly as possible. They also repaired the ankle dislocation. It's possible that there were injuries beyond that to ligaments, but the Cowboys have so far only confirmed the compound fracture and the ankle dislocation injuries. And they did announce this morning, Greeny, that he's expected to be released from the hospital today. Worth noting, Dr. Curry's expertise is in foot and ankle injuries in elite athletes. He uses advanced techniques in ankle ligament reconstruction to minimize immobilization and the inactivity period. And our Stefania Bell told me, Greeny, that the typical recovery time frame here is at least 6 months. At least 6 months. This is October, so you can do the math. It takes us well into next spring. And so it does inevitably, Ed, bring up the questions about the contract. I hate even doing it on this day, but clearly it's a part of the story that cannot be ignored. Where do we stand as far as you're concerned now, as far as a long-term contract for Dak and the Cowboys? Well, you know, Dak decided to become just the third different quarterback in NFL history to play on the franchise tag, rather than sign the multi-year deal that the Cowboys were offering at the deadline in July. So he accepted the risk of playing poorly or suffering an injury that could potentially diminish his value. His situation, Greeny, is really unprecedented because the only other quarterbacks to play on the franchise tag are Drew Brees and Kirk Cousins. They did it over a combined 3 seasons, and they started every single game during those 3 different seasons. And so now Prescott's season ends after 69 consecutive starts. After 5 games, he's guaranteed the $31.4 million franchise tag on the 1-year contract. The Cowboys can't negotiate a new deal with him until after this season ends. So they'll face a decision at the end of the year, depending on how they view the significance of this injury, as to whether they want to sign another 1-year franchise tag deal with him or they still want to pursue the multi-year deal, being somewhat uncertain about his physical state. But every indication is that Dak Prescott will continue as the Cowboys' starting quarterback next season. Okay, so there we have that. Ed Werder, outstanding as always. Thank you, and we will come back to you as this continues to develop, and I bring it here to the table. And Dan, you were not a part of the conversation when we talked about the business side of this earlier. There are 2 sides to this, clearly. Dak Prescott is the face of that franchise, and the emotional moment as he's being taken off the field is where part of the conversation is. But how about his future in Dallas right now? How do you see it?
I don't think there's any chance that Dak Prescott plays anywhere else but Dallas next year. And I would not have said that Saturday. On Saturday, I would have said, see what happens with the season. The expectations are really high. He's had some struggles in the first half of games. After that moment yesterday and watching that team respond to him and their emotion, there is no chance that he is not back as their starting quarterback next year. Whether it's the franchise tag or long-term extension, that first snap is going to be taken by Dak Prescott. And I think the reality is this, like, for Jerry Jones, how much does leadership actually matter to you? Like, what's the price tag for leadership and what's the price tag for culture? Because I know this, that place is better with Dak Prescott as their quarterback when it comes to that stuff. And I just feel this way. If they don't bring him back, that'll break that organization. It'll break them. Because I can't imagine being a player and watching what I saw on the field yesterday on that team, and then Jerry Jones going, nah, we're better off with someone else. I'm better off bringing someone else here. So I think as tragic as yesterday was, it proved a lot to me that he's the absolute bona fide franchise quarterback for them.
I agree with every word you said, but there was a great movie about football called North Dallas 40, in which there is a legendary line in which one of the players says, every time I say it's a game, you say it's a business, and every time I say it's a business, you say it's a game. At the end of the day, it's a business. And I do not believe it is a foregone conclusion that this thing plays out exactly the way the player would like it and the way all the other players around the National Football League would like it, because that's just not the way business in the NFL tends to go.
No, and unfortunately, you're right, Greeny, because Dan brings up a great point. In the locker room, Dak Prescott isn't just a teammate, he's a brother.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And being in a lot of locker rooms, you don't necessarily have that. Now, how much is that worth? For Dallas not to sign a bigger deal for this young man and realize he should have been the priority anyway. Instead, you're giving it to a receiver that, quite honestly, doesn't show up in big times. We never saw him. It was Gallup. We saw different guys. Like, I don't understand where they're coming from. So if they wouldn't give him the money then, they're going to go out and give it to him now? That's my understanding. And he's coming off an injury. Unfortunately, they're going to spin it to where we just couldn't quite get the numbers where we wanted to meet. I don't disagree with Dan. I think they're going to end up, if I had to bet something on it, I would say that they franchise him next year.
Ryan Clark, what do you think?
Yeah, I just don't think it's a foregone conclusion that he's there. I don't necessarily believe that Jerry Jones allows the personal feelings of other people to influence his business. This didn't become the most profitable organization in sports because Jerry Jones lets the feelings of his team and the players on his team force him to conduct business a certain way. And so if Dak Prescott can play under the terms that Jerry Jones wants him to, then I believe he'll be back. But I don't necessarily think that that's the way that Jerry Jones is going to go about doing this deal. Let's look at what Dak Prescott was before this injury. Dak Prescott was a winner. Dak Prescott was a very good football player. Dak Prescott was more than a good leader. Dak Prescott not only led in this locker room, but he was Jerry Jones's mouthpiece to me, even at the time where it could have hurt who he was as a man, who he was as a black man. And so Jerry Jones didn't even see fit to reward what he had already done at 100%. So now that he's a little bit of damaged goods, now that he isn't as perfect or pristine as he was before this season, do you think that Jerry Jones is going to break his back to sign Dak Prescott? If Dak Prescott comes in and say, you know what, I understand my positioning, I understand where I am, I'm willing to do this deal in the place that makes you comfortable, Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, then he's back. If he is not willing to do that, I can see the Dallas Cowboys having another quarterback next year. That would not surprise me at all.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.